difficult to beat percentages. I later learned that our group's losses during the summer of 1944 was 4%. Our crew faced these odds 25 times. 25 times 4% equals 100%. Incidentally, the Swiss pilot killed, one who suffered bad burns, was Paul Troy, aged 31. And his friends were interned in Switzerland at Adelboden, which is in the central part of the country. It was pretty decent. There wasn't like a prison, but they escaped. Were later caught just before they got away in France. Were beaten up and sent to Diable-Ray, which is a small valley surrounded by mountains. There's only one way in or out. And there he was put in a camp that was much harder. It was kind of notorious for being nasty to pilots who continued to try to escape. The 15-minute walk is January 8, 1945, Versoix, Saint-Denis. The country was rolling and rather heavily wooded with snow partially covering the ground. We couldn't see the stars, nor did we have any maps. Therefore, we followed our noses and kept the Geneva glow behind us. We cautiously crawled behind a low fence. The farmer carried on a conversation with his friends less than 100 feet away. When once again all was quiet, we edged our way through the woods until we heard the magical sound of running water. What else but the Versoix River in France? A few minutes later, we reached the stream in the midst of the forest. First, we very carefully waited and checked for the presence of any border guards. I suppose it was maybe half an hour before we satisfied that all was clear. And then we linked arms and formed a human chain across the icy torrent. It was unbelievable. After our previous experiences along the river, France at last, and easy too. For about an hour we followed a forest, always with Geneva's glow at our backs, until at last we reached discovery by coming out on the open road. We were far enough into France by now, we thought. It must be after midnight by now. Besides, the protective forest was finally gone. At 100 hours on the 8th of January, we followed the road under the light of a winery, and suddenly out of the shadows came a guttural octone. What's this? How could we still be in Switzerland? I couldn't believe it. Then it dawned on me the Versoix is the Franco-Swiss border to the north, but just about on this latitude it makes a right angle turn toward Lake Geneva, and for that short distance, maybe 5 or 6 miles, both banks are Swiss. My Irish luck did me in. The guard crossed the road, still with his gun leveled, and called for the Swiss equivalent of the corporal of the guard. The winery was the guardhouse, but nobody inside stirred, so the guard stuck his head inside the door to yell again. Still no answer. As the guard once again peered inside the door, we were gone. We were running full blast into the darkness beyond the light when the armed guard screamed at us to halt. I don't know yet what made us keep going, but we weren't about to stop. We were in the shadows now, and a bullet flashed off a rock ahead. Then Gallagher slipped and fell, but he was running again almost instantly. Another flashed, and then Vic stumbled too as he turned off the road to the right. But then he too regained his balance. About this time I also fell into the hedge on the right. The snow had felled all three of us, but Gallagher and Vic had kept right on running. There I was, hiding in the hedge, feeling a little like a grounded pheasant back home. By this time there were shouts and curses from the guardhouse about 200 to 300 yards away. I swear it seemed like it should have been at least a 1,000-yard run. About 20 minutes, the noise and confusion had pretty well subsided, and I figured that maybe I'd better move on. I was very, very disillusioned, and I didn't know precisely where the border was. All I really knew for certain was that I never would take anything for sure again. I didn't know how much walking was ahead of me, but I had a feeling of super cautious. A couple of hours of walking, I came again to a railroad track, which I followed, keeping well down in the ditch. To me, it seemed that the railroad signs were just a bit different, so hopefully indication of my being in France. It must have been nearly dawn when I cautiously approached the village railroad station bearing the name Gare de Saint-Denis or something like that. Since I never heard of town, I stepped over into the shadows away from the single light on the signboard and pondered my course of action. As I stood in the shadows of a small station, a squad of soldiers walked silently past without even noticing me. They wore British battle dress, so they were probably French soldiers, so I was probably in France. I mustered my best schoolboy French and asked the man as he walked by if he could take me to his officer. These men were undergrounders, Maquis, the same type as Area 9 at Limoges. The long years of German occupation had made real French soldiers a rarity. I was thoroughly played out, but at any rate I was satisfied. When I woke in a couple hours, Maquis were falling out for reveille and inspection. This was a rude awakening, for I had become completely civilianized in Switzerland. About an hour or so, I met the Maquis officer who spoke no English, but he seemed to understand my pidgin French enough to make some kind of conversation. He informed me that I had turned away from Gex when I followed railroad tracks and instead walked southward to Saint-Denis, about 12 miles to the south. And some rapid-fire French that was too much for me, the Maquis officer told me I could contact the U.S. 7th Army at Gex after taking the bus the next day. About then, a southbound bus stopped outside to get some gas. It was a very nippy morning, and a couple of the French passengers came into the room to get warm. I was getting my knee dress at the time, and I was talking to the Maquis in my hideous French with his strong Yankee accent. One of the visitors asked if perhaps I knew 2 Yankees in the bus. That did it. I rushed outside the bus. My pants were falling off too. Sure enough, it was Vic and Gal. We had a big reunion, much to the enjoyment of the passengers. Immediately asked the driver if he had room for one more passenger. No problem, since this was part of France that had not yet been liberated. And until that day, all Americans were considered heroes. The bus started out, and all 3 of us set out to Bellegarde and the U.S. 7th Army.
Order! Up! Let arms pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ready? Go!
privilege to host today's episode, scheduled for July 2011, to honor the sacrifices of American veterans, focusing on the World War II diary of my father-in-law, Daniel Foley Jr., that was read by his only son and my husband, Michael Daniel Foley. We worked on this program as a legacy to our grandson, of California Foleys, and our first Daniel Foley, born in Fairfax County, Virginia. Our next episode will be on the progress of the Burke West Springfield Senior Center Without Walls, an innovative public-private partnership to promote the health and well-being of our rapidly growing seniors in Fairfax County, Virginia. I was privileged to be the founder of that wonderful initiative, and I am currently serving as the chairman of the Advisory Council. Let me note that the children of Fairfax County, including my grandson, Daniel Patrick Foley, will benefit if the seniors are healthy and engaged in our community. First of all, we lower healthcare costs, and second of all, we support some of the babysitters of the future, like our grandson, Daniel Patrick. The project is aimed not just to assist seniors, but also to strengthen our Fairfax County for us and future generations. Thank you again for sharing this episode on the World War II diary of Daniel Foley Jr. in my television series, Fairfax County Stories by Lady Fairfax 2009, Filipino-American, Corazon Sandoval Foley. Thank you all very much.